start now.
Yeah.
So I welcome you all to the 17th edition of Mumbai International Film Festival for short films, documentary and animation films. Today we are fortunate to have with us Mr. Nicola Pivozan. Pivozan. He graduated from the University of Bologna in cinema. And Mr. Nicola Pivozan graduated in cinema from University of Bologna. He has directed many short films, animation, documentaries, and also music videos that have won more than 70 awards in festivals worldwide. He has also been teaching cinema in a high school near Milan. And he'll tell about his film when we request him. And then we have Lipika Singh Dharai from Bhubaneswar. She's a graduate of Pune Film Institute. And she has made many films and participated in Seoul Biennale of Architecture and Urbanism as a visual artist. And we have Utsav sitting beside me from the University of Performing and Visual Arts in Rohtak, Haryana. He has also made many other short films like Parda, Stay, Chaya, and Enchantism of Mystical Canal. I first request Mr. Nicola to tell us about his film.
So my short film, Close to the Light, it's an Italian production because I made it in Italy last July, so 2021. And it's set in 1944, so during the Second World War. There was the year somehow of the Italian Civil War because the fascism and the Nazi were collapsing. So they were recruiting people around to form the Black Brigades. There were some sort of army that they were trying to save the fascism by killing people, sometimes killing random people as a revenge because they were falling apart due to the partisan revolution somehow. So my short film is like an episode of that era, and it's about an execution made by the Black Brigades towards innocent farmers. So they, were shooting those innocent farmers. And the shooting was done by the Black Brigades that often took young kids in their ranks. So the kids shooting are like 18 years old or something like that, 17, 18, 19, so very, very young people that they are forced to kill those innocent. And so the film is basically freezing in time, this moment, because it's made with a very original filmmaking technique. It's a long take, so it's a single long take, but in which all the actors are not moving. They are like frozen in time, and the camera moves around them, but at the same time, they change position when they are not in frame. So it has a very interesting narrative. I don't know which one of you watched the film. So I try to narrate something that, is kind of common in Italy to make films, or even worldwide during, there are a lot of films about the Second World War, but I've tried to make it the most original way. Also because for me, filmmaking, especially with short film, is a way to challenge myself and experiment new things. That's why, as you read in my biography, I've done animation, documentaries, I've done a lot of things, different things, because I like each time to experiment, to make something new, to learn also something new. And this was my first film that I made in a long take, without any editing. So, yeah. This is the introduction to my film.
Thank you. Lipika, you'll tell us something about your film.
I'm Lipika. I'm a filmmaker from Odisha. So my film's name is Backstage. It is about the lives and times of the puppeteers of Odisha. In 2013, actually, I was just in front of an auditorium after watching a show on dying art form. And I was talking to a journalist. It was winter in the night. We were just talking, and I was talking to him, and he said, do you know about a puppeteer who has 300 wooden puppets, and he lives in a very small town in Odisha? Do you know about him?" I said, "No, I don't know." So that's how, my journey started with this film. And the interesting thing is that I try to, reach out to the journalist, but I could not, because his phone was, not reachable. So I directly landed in that town of that puppeteer and met him. And that's how the film's, the journey started. We got a fellowship from NFSC, National Folklore Support Center, Chennai, to do a research for 1.5 years. Then during that research, I really got involved with the communities, the puppeteer, and I thought, they were the last generation puppeteers in Odisha, and I am from Odisha, but I didn't see puppetry much. I didn't see any puppet shows and nothing. For the first time, on that day, I was watching a show. So I thought, okay, this needs a lot of, needs some attention and needs documentation. But then, while doing the research, I was so attached to the entire community and puppeteers that I thought that no, it needs a narrative, and it has to be a film, and that's how I made this film.
Thank you, Lipika. Utsav, please tell us something about it.
Hello, my name is Utsav, and this is my short fiction film. I guess the duration is around 15 minutes. So my journey is not that much, but a word very fonded me was that motherhood. Like there are some statements in some words, like you already understand, the underpinned statements. Like if you say motherhood, yeah, that's obviously the love and the care. But everything has a second face and a second side. So my point was that let's explore the second phase of the motherhood, like how someone's desire, how a woman's or how a lady's desire can actually just overcast someone else's life. And no, there is no one antagonist in my film. The special part is there is no antagonist in my film, and neither an evil character. But someone sees the lady in my film as like an evil character. But that is the good point in it. Like there are no evil character in it, and the story is just that. I would not tell the story right now, but the film only revolves around, like, it is set in 1980s. So as of Nicola's, like, it is based at back, and where it is based in a rural family, and the husband has to take a crucial decision in it, and that decision is like whether he needs to be with his secondly wedded wife or the previous kids, the kids from the previous wife. And now he is in that situation. Now what he takes it, that the life depends on him. So the film revolves around the word motherhood only, which fascinated me to make this story. And that's it, nothing much. Yeah, that, like, I didn't make a documentary that I have a long research work, but the script actually fascinated me a lot. So this is my introduction and my film's introduction too.
Thank you, Utsav. Now the house is open for your questions, please.
Hello. So I have a question to Sir Nicholas, sir. That you said that you have experimented a lot of genres and styles of making filmmaking. So any particular thing which you like the most? Any particular format of filmmaking which you personally enjoy the most?
Yeah, this is like when you do a lot of different things, it's also hard for the people to recognize you or your style, because, sometimes I make a drama, like very sad, sometimes I make funny comedy, sometimes science fiction. So it's not, there are many filmmakers that more or less do the same, and so the people can recognize, oh, he is the filmmaker doing, 2D animation. In my case, being always different, it's hard for the people, but many told me, I can recognize your style somehow, even if something is very different. And maybe because for me, the thing that keep like a trait union between all of them is that I try to create powerful pictures. Like I really like those filmmakers that create somehow icons. Like, I don't know, Stanley Kubrick or even Tarantino. You know, there are some frame of Tarantino that you recognize right away. You know, they are like trademarks. It's pictures that really stay in your mind. And this is something that I try to put in every of my film, you know, to have strong pictures. Sometimes also using visual effects or a particular composition of the image. So I don't have like a favorite one. I like all of them for different reasons, but I try in each of them to have this powerful visual aspect. Yep. Thank you.
Question to you, sir. Like, as you said, you have done past works in animations, and a movie like this, like Freezing in Time, and a lot of experimentation takes place. So these are the kind of movies, as well as animation, that take a lot of experimentation and post-production value. So what was the idea behind this movie? Like, how was the post-production stage? What was the experimental stage?
Yeah, actually, this doesn't have a post-production at all. Well, except a bit of color correction and the sound design, because I wanted to challenge myself to make everything in a long shot, you know, without any artifacts. But my experience with animation helped me in this film because I made a study, like a simulation in 3D before shooting the film. Because the film is very complicated, long take, where the camera and the actors must be all coordinated. So to get the perfect coordination on set, I made before shooting a 3D simulation. So I used my experience with animation to recreate in the virtual space. You know, I recreate the camera movements and the actor's position and everything, you know, in a 3D world. To then, when shooting on stage, on location, because actually it was shot in an Italian countryside villa, kind of. And then I replicate, you know, in reality what I had simulated in a 3D world. So in that way, I use, you know, the technology to help me in the real shooting, but the actual film doesn't have visual effects or post-production.
Like, talking about the movie, when, you know, we talk about like a World War movie and still long takes, you know, one can go venture and it's like somehow inspired by 1917. Is that true?
Yeah, in a way, a bit, yes. And also, I mentioned before, like Stanley Kubrick, because and the composition of the image of Barry Lyndon, for instance, you know, like every frame of Barry Lyndon looked like a painting somehow. So I tried to do the same, but at the same time with movement. So it's like moving inside a painting somehow. And yeah, then there is also an Estonian film, Close in the Crosswind, which use a similar technique. And also, there are some commercials. You know, I watched this video on Facebook, and there was this commercial behind the scenes, and they show how they were changing the set. It was just a room, I guess, like a living room, but they were changing the living room when the camera was moving around. So, you know, I got different inputs from something totally different each other, you know, from Barry Lyndon to a Facebook commercial and so on. But I tried to give my vision, mixing all those references and inputs.
A question to you, ma'am, now. Like, nowadays, like, regional cinema is like growing as a you know, thing of its own, because before people didn't usually prefer regional cinema because subtitles, you know, they're kind of they take away from the visual media, if you will. So you being a creator from like a non-Bollywood thing, like a regional filmmaker as you, like, do you have any nuances or a thing to comment on, like, the regional cinema getting more attention?
I mean, when it comes to my language, I do not see it as a regional language, or, you know, I don't see it in under any category, because I have been speaking in Odia, which is my, you know, speaking language, since my, like, childhood. I mean, it's been like more than 35 years. I belong to a community called Ho, which is an indigenous community, and the language is Ho. I didn't get to speak that language. So making films in a certain language is also, I think, a political choice that you make. And after passing out from FTII, I could have gone to Bombay, started making Hindi films and whatnot. I mean, I could have done those things because we were all geared towards, making films, I mean, which are also mainstreams and which would also give you money and all. Coming to your question, the media and a certain section of people see it like that, regional cinema, or, Satyajit Ray was making films in, Bengali language when, I mean, so many years back. So, I mean, today, what I feel, I've been watching a lot of films and films from independent filmmakers. Recently, I attended the short film corner of Cannes Film Festival, and I was watching a lot of films, official selection films and everything. People are really talking about belongingness. They're looking for their roots in their films, in their expression. There is something missing. And I think language is doing something in that. Language is filling some gaps in getting back to roots, knowing our people. Because I always feel that when I stand, there are thousands of people from my community who are behind me. I'm representing them. So I think that language, I don't see it, look at it as regional films or any that sort. I think that it is close to me, it's comfortable, and I can express myself better in Odia. And I think all the independent filmmakers, I think I can't speak on behalf of them. They feel the same way, in the same way that, and that's why so many films are coming up, so many in numbers, yeah.
Hello. While making your respective projects, what was the biggest challenge you faced, and how did you overcome with it? Three of you, please answer.
What was the, what? Sorry.
While making your respective projects, like everybody, that you have made the documentary, so what was the biggest challenge for you while making it?
Okay. So, going back to the previous question, the first challenge was the film was in Odia. Yeah. So who is going to give the fund? And that was the first challenge. And for any independent filmmaker who are working from like their respective states, it also depends on the state government, how it is funding independent films and how it is supporting those films and filmmakers. So the first challenge was to get funds for this film. And the second biggest challenge was in India, when we make a long documentary, there is a question, do we know how to produce it? We may have funders, we may have filmmakers. I was the executive producer of the film, and all the independent filmmakers from India, they become the executive producer of documentaries. So what does an executive producer do? She or he manages everything for the project. So when you make a documentary, it takes a long time. So my personal challenge was that how do I, remain honest to the filmmaker who wanted to make the film 5 years back, and be there with the same cause, interest, and affinity towards the film, and spend that amount of time, because this film took a long period of time, and in between 2 years of pandemic came. So, so many hurdles that we face as filmmaker, especially when you make documentaries. So how to stand by the film and be there and finish the film and then present the film in a festival like this. It's a big graph. So that was my challenge, because it took a lot of time. And then reaching a body like Films Division, because I wanted to document the last generation puppeteers. So I wanted this film to be produced by an organization who would archive this film also. So to reach to an organization like this and participate in a competition of pitching and everything and get through, that was the biggest challenge.
So yeah, for me also funding was a problem. Well, I say was because I give up with funding somehow because, well, first of all, I don't like too much compromise. So for me, it's hard to get money from the institutions. And also because I'm Italian, but I live in Estonia. So it's very hard to get money from Italy because I don't live there. And at the same time, it's hard to get money from Estonia because I'm not Estonian, I'm Italian, so they don't like to give the money to some foreigners. So it's very complicated. So in the last few years, I gave up with asking funding around, and I'm producing myself, either through Kickstarter. So I made a few Kickstarter campaign, crowdfunding to get the money from the people, or simply investing myself some money, but I'm not rich, so I invest very little. And in fact, this short film was made with a super low budget. So the biggest challenge was to still achieve something good with a very low budget. And since it's a film set during the Second World War, I wanted everything to be perfect in the costumes, the weapons. We also have like a car from the real era. And all those things, usually if you go like with a regular, costume renting or vehicle renting, I've wasted my budget basically only for the car, for instance. But thanks to some friends of a friends, and always trying to, catch the people, or hey, this is a cool idea. We need it only for one day because it was a long shot, so we made it everything in one day. So this was easier to get, favors, like people borrowing the costumes without asking so much or asking anything. So the big challenge was to truly be like an indie film producer and finding all the necessary for a film that was very ambitious, because set nearly 100 years ago with all the costume and so on, and keeping a super small budget. But at the end, it turned out good. So I'm proud of, through the challenges of, sometimes it's true also in the past, like Italian filmmakers, sometimes when you have a challenge, when you have to struggle, you become more creative. When you have little money, then you are more creative to think a way to make things. When you have a lot of money, sometimes you waste the money and you don't get good results. So struggling somehow is good.
And my major challenge was how to make my story believable. The conflict in which that was very crucial, and I wasn't able to digest it myself, that how will I make it believable to the audience. Like when you write the script and then you translate it to the film, like there's a conversion happens, so there is loss of idea, details, and the language. So that becomes very hard. In films, I am a student filmmaker, I've been passed out, but this was produced by the university. So the major challenge was, it's all right, I wrote the script, but how will it get the depth? There was a afraidness in me that whether it should not be flat or not. So my major challenge was how to make it believable. As the film sets in 1980s in the line, which I haven't even seen myself too, so 50 years back. So I in fact don't know how to make the milieu. The milieu is the ambience and all, everything, how to make it believable. It also went on in many festivals and all, trust me, what we say, the conflict is still not digestible to many of them. The conflict is so crucial. So my major part was it was difficult for me to set the world in 1980s, like the production, whatever he said, the production, the milieu, the costume, the vehicle and all, it was hard to arrange it. But the very hard situation was for me to make it believable. Like in fiction only you create your own world, whether it is a fantasy, magical realism, natural, or you treat it as a docu-way. But it needs to be like the audience need to get up in your world and observe the film. So that was the major task for me. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, so how did you manage to convince the people whom you documented? So what were their reaction? Like, was it easily convincing, or like how could you like manage to convince them to, that you're making a documentary and you're trying to uplift their artisan or their art, the dying art? How was your experience about that?
I met them during the research period, like as an absolute stranger who didn't know anything about anything. But I was really, quite moved by, their warmth and their, that, I would not say dedication, I'm not just getting the word. How they carried the art form like their body language, they have been performing it for many generations. That's why they are called traditional puppeteers. So these kind of art forms, they thrive in a community. So I think the biggest thing that I learned as a filmmaker and also initially as a researcher, that I need to go inside that, community and then make a film. So I didn't have to convince anyone. We knew about each other and we knew about our intentions.
Usually what I feel is like people who are from little backward places, they're very shy to communicate with media people or like the filmmakers. Like that's what I have faced.
Yeah, but
like,
they are
as-
little different. They are
Okay.
performers.
Right, absolutely.
So here nothing like works like caste, economic status, nothing. A
So
performer is a
have they
performer.
watched your documentary? Like what was their like?
They have
experience?
watched bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
Because of the pandemic. I couldn't go because it's all the places are very distant from each other. I couldn't travel and show it to them, the entire film, and they can't access links, web links and all this. So I have to go and screen it. So I couldn't do it for the last 1 year. Like that's a big this thing, but
Very
yeah,
challenging.
yeah, to communicate with everyone and then finalize the screening date and everything. So yeah, so everyone, like I always say that even in my previous film, the subject, if I call them subject, then the
Yeah.
subject makes the film, not the person who wants to make the film. So because they
It's a
came
very
together,
strong subject, I must say.
because they came together and they were ready to show their vulnerability in front of me and the camera, the film could have been possible. If they would they didn't do it, then yeah, so that can be the answer.
Thank you.
I have a question to Utsav sir. As you said, this is your university film, which is like the last final project. So, me being a film student, I'm curious to know that how did you manage to create your crew? How did you gather people and like made a crew?
Yeah, it totally depends on person to person. The first thing is that, and the second thing is that you have two ways. According to me, the first is the conviction of your story, and the second is your conviction, how you manage and how you talk to others and how you convince them that this is our film and this will work great and we all will be doing it here. So it is a very short process, but just that you don't have to always play with the head. You sometimes also need to play with your heart and make it possible how to shoot successfully. Like there are many tons of shoots which just in between the production or the post production it just stops and no one cares to complete it, and the persons who are connected to it, they just get shattered, but still they can't do, they need to move on, but a project has been lost. Yeah, it's just that you need to be very sensitive towards the project and your crew members, which is very necessary. Yeah. Any more questions?
मेरा प्रश्न लिपिका जी से है।
जी।
आपके मन में ये पहले से ही विचार था इस सब्जेक्ट पे फिल्म बनाने का, या फिर आपके साथ या आपके समुदाय में कोई इंसिडेंट हुआ हो या उससे प्रेरित होकर आपने ये फिल्म बनाने का?
सो दो इंग्लिश में या हिंदी में बोलो?
किससे आपको अच्छा लगे?
So okay. So in 2012, I was in Bombay, and I was planning to shift to Odisha. Why? I wanted to make films in Odia language because, as I said, that's my language and I could express better. And after shifting to Odisha, I was looking for many, involvements. So I was attending cultural programs, I was meeting people, I was really looking for subjects. How do I participate, with my films in the surrounding? How do I, intervene the surrounding as a filmmaker? So first long feature documentary I made in Odisha was around witch hunting cases in Odisha. It was a social documentary and it changed me as a person. It really changed me as a person, how to look at your society, where you belong to, and reflect, yourself. Then that was an intense process as a filmmaker for me to make that documentary. And at the same time, I was introduced to these puppeteers. And, now that I'm speaking about it, I find a common point. Like in the documentary that I made around witch hunting was called Some Stories Around Witches, produced by PSBT. And I was documenting some, witch hunting devastating cases where people are getting murdered and beheaded, and there is superstition, there is so much. And at the same time, I was also looking at people, performers, who are their art form was dying. So I wanted to document that also. So it wasn't like, I don't know when it came to my mind that I want to make this film. It happened so. So I thought, and also one more thing, that in Odisha, I think I'm the only woman documentary filmmaker, making films. So my participation and presence is very important in my place. So I really look for subjects and try to make a short film or a longer film or a short fiction or a documentary, and that's how I participate. I've been trying that, and that's how this film also, came about.
Okay, thank you.
I want to ask Utsav as to why did he set his film in 1980s? Any particular reason?
Yeah, the main reason was setting the film in 1980 was like there are some regional connections in it. Like there's some roots which now has been vanished through through the waves of time. Like it does not happen now. So there were some conflicts which we don't believe yet also that might also happen. But there were some things. My major point for her was to make it believable. Some crucial steps were taken, and the first was to where to form your world, which time and which era and which space. So that was I did my research, and just to make it more believable, I said the time and the date and the place where it happens. And for your point also, yeah, the crew needs to believe in you. Like my major point is that believability is the must in fiction and in documentary also.
Any more questions, please? Okay, then we'll call it a day. Thank you, all of you. Thank you.